They sat me next to the trash cans. At my own brother's wedding, after everything I'd done, paid the florist, covered the catering deposit, even gave them our grandfather's antique watch as a gift, I wasn't even on the seating chart. They scribbled my name on a sticky note and slapped it on a folding chair by the kitchen door. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. It was a message. I was never family to them, just a wallet with legs. So I stood up, took back my gift in front of everyone, and walked out. That was the day I stopped begging to be loved. When I was 12, my aunt leaned across the dinner table, placed her hand on my shoulder, and said, "You're the strongest woman in this family." I remember the warmth of pride blooming in my chest. I didn't know then that she meant it as a burden. Strength in my family was code for silence. It meant you handled things, didn't complain, and most importantly, you gave without expecting anything back. By 16, I was working 2 part-time jobs after school. By 21, I'd paid off Dad's second mortgage and Mom's car note. My younger brother failed out of college twice. I sent him back a 3rd time and bought him a new laptop. They called me a blessing, a miracle, the glue that held the family together. I wore those words like armor, even though some nights I could barely breathe under the weight. No one ever asked what I wanted. No one ever celebrated my birthday. When I got a promotion and bought myself a cake, my mother said, "You didn't need to do all that just for you. It's not like anyone else is around to eat it." I told myself it was fine. If I didn't take care of them, who would? One night, after a 14-hour shift and a string of missed meals, I sat on the floor, shoes still on, massaging the swelling out of my feet. I looked down at my hands, calloused, dry, trembling, and wondered how many parts of myself I'd given away before I even knew what they were worth. That's when I started asking the kind of questions no good daughter asks. Who's taking care of me? When did love become a transaction? Have you ever believed that love, true love, meant giving endlessly, no matter what you got back? A month before my brother's wedding, I heard something I wasn't supposed to. I was at Mom's house, dropping off a rent check she'd forgotten to pay, when I passed by the hallway. She was on speakerphone with my brother. "Put her by the kitchen," Mom said, laughing, "or near the trash. Honestly, she should be grateful she even gets a seat." I didn't say anything. I walked back to my car, set the check on fire in an old coffee mug, and watched it burn down to ash. But I still went to the wedding. You see, that's the trap. You hear the betrayal, you see the truth, and still you hope you're wrong. Still you want to be wrong. But the betrayal didn't start there. It had been happening in whispers, in smiles with teeth, in the kind of love that demands your silence in exchange for conditional affection. They never screamed. They didn't have to. The cuts came small over years, and silence made them feel normal. When I asked for help moving apartments, Mom said, "You're always so independent. You don't need anyone." When I skipped a family barbecue to finish a work project, my brother texted, "Some of us make time for what matters." When I asked where my name had gone from our shared family savings account, suddenly locked, they said, "It's just easier this way. You're always too busy anyway." "I've taken care of you your whole life," Mom said once, when I didn't wire her money fast enough. "You owe me this." I believed her. Until I found out she'd removed me from the family will 3 years ago. No explanation, no conversation, just a signature on a legal document, striking my name from the list of beneficiaries. When I confronted her, she shrugged. "You have your own life now. This is for family." It stung more than it should have. Not because of the money, I didn't need a cent, but because in that moment I realized they never saw me as part of them, just part of their survival plan. I remember once when I was 6, getting sick during winter, Mom made me a hot bowl of soup, set it gently on the table, and tucked me in with a kiss. I carried that memory for decades, proof she cared. Now I see it differently. That soup wasn't love, it was maintenance, just enough warmth to keep the machine running. They said they loved me, but only when I was useful, when I was giving, when I was quiet. I thought they were protecting me. I thought they wanted what was best. I thought that one day they'd say thank you. They never did. And maybe they never will. By the time the wedding rolled around, I didn't expect a throne. But I never imagined they'd put me next to the trash cans. The table was tucked behind a half wall, beside the swinging doors to the kitchen. A trash bin with a plastic liner sat inches from my chair, half filled with shrimp tails and crumpled napkins. The smell drifted with every gust of air. The restroom sign hung crooked on the wall nearby, blinking under a flickering light. My name was scribbled on a post-it. Emily. Not Emily, not even close. I stood there, stunned. For a moment, I convinced myself it was a mistake. Maybe they ran out of space. Maybe someone forgot to print a proper card. Maybe. That word had become my entire vocabulary in this family. I sat down quietly, folding my dress beneath me, my back straight despite the plastic chair digging into my spine. Guests laughed from the main floor, clinking champagne glasses. I caught a glimpse of the head table, my brother beaming, his new wife glowing beside him. Mom sat 2 seats down, holding a wine glass like royalty. They hadn't just forgotten me, they'd erased me. I reached down into my purse and ran my fingers over the box I had given them earlier that morning. Inside was our grandfather's pocket watch, solid gold, passed down through 3 generations. I had cleaned it, polished it, and engraved the back with their wedding date. It was worth over $5,000, but its real value wasn't in dollars, it was in memory. And I had given it freely. Maybe they were just overwhelmed. Maybe the planner didn't get the full list. Maybe, again, maybe. A young server paused beside me, placing a lukewarm salad in front of me. She hesitated. Her eyes flicked to my name. "Are you Emily?" she whispered. I nodded. She leaned closer. "I'm sorry, I overheard them. They said you weren't really a guest, just someone they had to invite." Then she was gone. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel hurt. I felt humiliation, a quiet, dense kind of shame that crawled beneath my skin and made my face burn. Not anger, shame. I stood up, slowly, carefully. I walked back to the gift table at the front, weaving through confused guests. No one stopped me. No one even looked at me. I picked up the box. The mother of the bride glanced up. Her brows arched slightly. "Is something wrong?" I smiled. "Not anymore." I left without saying another word. I didn't run. I didn't slam doors or cause a scene. I simply walked out, through the marble-floored lobby, past the valet, into the cold night air. My heels clicked like punctuation marks. Each step said, "Enough, enough, enough." Inside my car, the watch box sat on my lap. My hands trembled, but I didn't cry. Not yet. That came later. It was nearly 2 a.m. when I finally got home. I kicked off my shoes, turned off my phone, and curled up on the couch with a blanket that still smelled like lavender from the last time I did laundry, 3 weeks ago. I thought I had left the wedding behind, but the wedding hadn't left me. By morning, my phone was on fire. Texts, missed calls, voicemails, and then notifications. I had gone viral. Someone had filmed my walkout, all of it. The video had been posted to TikTok with the caption, "Woman walks out of brother's wedding after being seated next to trash cans." The internet had opinions. She walked like a queen, leaving a sinking ship. That's the kind of self-respect I wish I had. I don't even know her, but I'm proud. And then came the DMs, strangers, hundreds of them, women, men, teens, grandmothers. People who had been left out, sat aside, made small in the name of love. Thank you for doing what I never could. Your silence screamed louder than any speech. I saw myself in your walk. I read them in silence, curled up in the same spot, on the couch, my legs pulled to my chest, the box still beside me. Then, finally, I opened it. The watch gleamed under the morning light. I held it carefully, like a small animal, like something fragile but still breathing. And then, 20 years' worth of tears found their way out. I cried like a child. No shame, no filters, no holding back. Just salt and sound, and 20 years of swallowing pain. When it was over, I didn't feel broken. I felt real. That's when my phone buzzed again. It was a message request from someone I hadn't spoken to in 15 years. My aunt, the one who once called me the strongest woman in the family. I opened it. Just one line. About damn time. My aunt called me 2 days after the wedding. Her voice was dry, sharp, deliberate, like a knife slicing fruit. We hadn't spoken in over a decade, but she didn't waste time on apologies or nostalgia. They did the same thing to your uncle, she said. Your mother and brother convinced him to invest in a business that never existed. Took his savings. He died thinking it was his fault for not reading the fine print. I couldn't speak. My throat clenched like it was trying to keep the truth from getting in. They used you, Emily, just like they used him, but you're still here. That means you can do something. That night, I pulled out the old shoebox I hadn't touched in years, the one labeled receipts, handwritten in fading marker. At the time, I'd thought I was being responsible, cautious. Now I realized I'd been documenting my own downfall. Inside were bank statements, wire transfers, emails from my brother requesting emergency funds, signed checks, Cash App screenshots, all under the guise of love and family crisis. I opened my laptop and built a folder on my desktop. I called it Proof. Each file I dropped into it made my chest tighten. The watch wasn't the only heirloom they'd discarded. They'd buried something much heavier, my trust. As I cross-checked dates and amounts, patterns emerged. Large transfers around holidays, sudden withdrawals days after I'd been asked for help. Accounts in my name I didn't remember authorizing. My stomach flipped as I realized one of them had been used for international wire activity. I wasn't just a donor, I was a liability. Micro cliffhanger. Every file led to a deeper betrayal. Every line item bled. I hired a financial investigator, quietly, discreetly. I told him to look for anything out of place, anything that had my name on it, anywhere I never went. I also contacted a lawyer, one recommended by my aunt, the kind who had seen what family could do behind closed doors. We met in a small coffee shop off a quiet street. It smelled like cinnamon and burnt espresso. She ordered green tea. I didn't order anything. My hands were shaking too hard to hold a cup. I need to give you access to everything, I said, sliding the flash drive across the table. She didn't smile, she just nodded. I signed the power of attorney with a pen that weighed more than it should have. And then I breathed. Have you ever gone looking for the truth, knowing it might break your favorite memories into pieces? Later that week, I received a DM from someone unexpected, the server from the wedding. Hi, I just wanted to say I'm sorry again for what happened. You didn't deserve that. Attached was a voice memo. I hesitated, then pressed play. It was a recording from the staff's prep room. My mother's voice was unmistakable. Don't worry about Emily. She just wants attention. Put her anywhere. She should be grateful she's even invited. Another voice, my brother's. She always acts like she's above everyone. Let her sit with the trash. It fits. I didn't cry this time. I saved the file, labeled it. They said it themselves. Revenge had never been my goal. I didn't want to destroy them. I wanted to reclaim me. So I built a team. The first was my aunt, sharp, strategic, emotionally immune. She knew how to play their game. The second, my therapist, a woman who'd once escaped her own mother's control. She recognized the coded language, the manipulation loops, and gave names to the shadows I'd lived under. The third, a YouTuber known for exposing family drama with calm, evidence-based storytelling. She reached out after my video went viral and said, "If you ever want your story told with truth and dignity, I'll help." Together, we called ourselves the Shadow Circle. We shared files over encrypted drives, held Zoom calls with no faces, just voices. We mapped timelines, listed players, connected events like string across a corkboard. Each time I added another piece to the puzzle, my world got clearer. Smaller, cleaner, micro cliffhanger. The more I spoke, the more they began to flinch, and they weren't even in the room. But the most unexpected shift came quietly. One evening, after a long strategy session, I dusted off the old keyboard in my apartment. It was covered in books and forgotten mail. I hadn't played since college, since my mother said piano was a waste of time for a girl with bills. I pressed one key, then another. My fingers stumbled, fumbled. But I kept going. The sound was off, broken. So was I. And still I played. That night, I didn't check my messages. I didn't reread old documents. I didn't update the spreadsheet. I just let myself remember who I was before I tried so hard to be theirs. Revenge is a blade. But healing is a rhythm. The plan would launch on Christmas. But that night, I let the music lead. I wrapped each gift by hand, crisp white paper, blood red ribbon, no tags, no notes. Just a small gold wax seal on top. Inside each box was a neatly printed dossier, scanned bank records, signed documents, screenshots, and audio transcripts. Each one a mirror held up to their own face. It wasn't revenge, it was truth, delivered with a bow. I mailed them all on December 20th. No return address, no warning. Just one box for each. My mother, my brother, my sister-in-law, and a few extended family members who had played quiet accomplices for far too long. By Christmas Eve, they would all know. I didn't watch my phone that day. I went for a walk instead. Cold wind scraped my cheeks, and the smell of pine and wood smoke filled the streets. Inside every house I passed, families laughed, clinked glasses, opened presents. I used to imagine being part of that kind of holiday, one where love came without terms. Instead, I walked alone, with the kind of peace that comes only when you've finally chosen yourself. By the 26th, it started. My brother was called into an emergency audit by his firm. An anonymous tip had flagged suspicious fund transfers tied to his personal account. My mother received a formal notice from the community board. She was suspended pending investigation. Her position as president of the local women's council was under threat. They didn't know how or who. They only knew someone knew. And I said nothing. Micro cliffhanger. I didn't need to speak. I just had to deliver to the right people at the right time. Then came the call I didn't expect. "Emily," a voice rasped on the other end. "It's Grandma." I hadn't heard from her in years. She always sat silently during our family gatherings, letting my mother and aunt dominate the conversation. She never stood up for me, never spoke out. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said. I froze. For what? For doing what I was too afraid to do 30 years ago. That call shook me more than any fallout ever could. It reminded me that silence doesn't always mean agreement. Sometimes it means survival. That night, I sat on my living room floor, surrounded by leftover ribbon, tissue paper, and crumpled notes. My hands still trembled, not from fear, but from release. I cried, not because I was victorious, but because I had finally stopped begging to be seen. Have you ever let go of hope, so old it had turned into poison? I asked myself that as I folded the last scrap of wrapping and slid it into the trash. Then came Monday. They didn't go quiet, they roared. My mother posted a Facebook status filled with veiled references. Betrayal, disloyalty, ungrateful daughters. My brother uploaded an old photo of us, captioned with, "Family means forgiveness, even when others forget." They shared stories, half-truths, old screenshots. They painted me as unstable, vindictive, lonely. They tried to build a fire under my name using wet wood. Then I dropped it. The audio, it was short, 37 seconds. My mother's voice, clear and sharp. "She's just a walking ATM. Keep her happy and she'll pay for anything." No context, no commentary. I posted it with one line. "Sometimes silence isn't strength, it's survival." The comments exploded. She said that about her own daughter? Now we know why she walked out. Protect your peace, Emily, micro cliffhanger. When they attacked, I didn't fight, I exposed. That's all it took. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. That night, I sat on my bed, scrolling through messages from strangers, people who saw themselves in my story, women who had funded entire weddings and were thanked with silence, men who were shunned after setting boundaries with toxic parents, grown children still grieving a version of family that never really existed. On my podcast that week, I spoke not as a warrior, but as a witness. "They're not evil," I said. "They're just selfish, and no one ever taught them that love without limits isn't love. It's theft." The messages kept coming. "You gave me permission to leave." I thought I was the only one. "Thank you." Then another knock. At my door. It was my mother. She looked smaller than I remembered, wrinkled, eyes puffy, her shoulders hunched, in a coat she rarely wore. "I just wanted to talk," she said, voice cracking. "All these people online. You've embarrassed me. It's cruel." I didn't invite her in. She pulled out a folded paper, an old family photo, one I hadn't seen in years. Me, age 11, holding a trophy, everyone smiling. "I miss this," she said. I looked at the photo, then at her. "You miss control," I replied. "Not me." She blinked. "Can you please take it down?" she asked. "The post, the audio, it's ruining my life." That was the twist. She didn't come to apologize. She came to protect her image, and that's when I knew I was done. The first time I told my full story on a podcast, my voice didn't shake. It was calm, steady, almost too even. The host, a woman known for exposing generational trauma, sat across from me in silence for a full 3 seconds before speaking. "That wasn't a story," she finally said. "That was a scalpel." The episode went viral within a day. Then came TEDx. They titled the event Redefining Family, When Blood Becomes a Cage. I walked on stage in black slacks and a pale blouse, no makeup, no script, just truth. The applause was deafening. And afterward, backstage, a woman in her 60s clutched my hand and whispered, "I waited 40 years to leave. You gave me permission." Meanwhile, the real consequences rolled in, without me lifting a finger. My brother lost his custody hearing. The judge had reviewed submitted evidence of financial misconduct and emotional instability, most of it documented by his ex-wife, who had reached out to me quietly after the Christmas drop. For once, I didn't tell her what to do. I just gave her what she asked for: clarity. My mother was formally removed from the community council. They demanded she return thousands of dollars in funds that had mysteriously disappeared during her time as chair. A forensic audit had traced the money through 3 shell accounts, one of which, ironically, had once been in my name. They tried to spin it, blame cancel culture, accuse me of vendetta, but no one was listening anymore. Micro cliffhanger. Winning isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just that no one believes their lies anymore. A week after TEDx, I found an old photo album in my closet. Thick dust on the cover. I flipped through each page slowly. Christmas mornings, summer barbecues, birthday cakes I'd never blown out. I paused on one image, me around 10, grinning in a yellow dress, holding a sparkler. My mother behind me, smiling so perfectly. You'd never guess she'd one day treat me like a stranger with a bank account. I didn't burn the photo. I didn't rip it. I slid it back in gently. I wanted to remember, not to hate, but to understand just how far I'd come. People expected I'd keep going, that I'd press charges, sue, expose more, and there was more. But I didn't. I'd made my point, loudly, clearly, and permanently. Bridge. Because there's a victory bigger than revenge, it's not needing it anymore. Instead, I started something new. With part of the settlement money, I built a fund called Reclaim. It was small at first, just a website, a few volunteers, a list of therapists and legal contacts, but word spread. Survivors of family abuse, gaslighting, financial manipulation, they began writing in. Not for money, for guidance, for voice. My podcast grew, not just in listeners, but in impact. One episode featured a mother who left a cult-like household. Another, a man disowned for protecting his wife from his parents. People cried, people donated. And then, one day, a producer from Netflix reached out. "We don't want a revenge story," she said. "We want a healing one, a real one. Messy, painful, transformative." So I gave them that. By spring, we'd signed a deal. Trash Seat, Throne Life would become a docu-series. Still, none of that felt like the real win. That came one evening when the snow started falling again. Just like the night after the wedding. I sat by the window of my new apartment, alone, wrapped in a blanket that didn't smell like lavender detergent or old grief, just warmth. Outside, the world was quiet. No notifications, no lawyers, no noise, just flakes landing soft and slow. Micro cliffhanger. I didn't think about them. I didn't need them to suffer. I didn't need them to change. I just didn't need them. That kind of peace can't be faked. You can't perform it, you earn it. And I didn't forgive them, but I forgave myself for staying too long, for giving too much, for mistaking abuse for love. I lived my whole life trying not to disappoint them. Now I lived so I wouldn't disappoint myself. Bridge. And for the first time in years, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was beginning. I moved without telling anyone. No forwarding address, no dramatic farewell. Just boxes packed carefully, one silent goodbye to a city full of memories, and a fresh lease with my name on it, mine alone. The new place was smaller, but it felt like breathing. No shared walls with ghosts, no furniture with stories that didn't belong to me. I repainted the bedroom myself, pale sage green. I picked every item with intention, a tea kettle I'd never have to share, curtains that made the afternoon light feel like a hug. I changed my phone number, deleted every old group chat, blocked numbers I used to answer out of obligation. For the first time in years, I wasn't available. I created rules, not walls, not armor, just quiet agreements with myself. I would love with open hands, not clenched fists. I would listen, but not absorb. I would help, but not carry. I dated slowly, carefully. And when someone asked if I wanted to meet their family on week 2, I said no. I move slow, I explained. And I didn't apologize. A month later, I got an invitation, an extended family reunion, old location, same names, same games. I smiled, then declined. No guilt, no explaining, no aftershock of shame. That was new, that was freedom. That evening, I made tea and played music from my laptop, the kind with lyrics about rebirth, not revenge. I danced barefoot in my kitchen, wrapped in a robe that didn't need to look good for anyone. Micro cliffhanger. People think I'm lonely now. I'm not. I'm just finally alone with peace, and not surrounded by people who confuse possession with love. Bridge. Because something better was on its way, and this time I was ready for it. It started as a conversation. He was a speaker at a TEDx panel on generational healing. His words were gentle but firm. He spoke of boundaries like they were a form of love. Afterward, we ran into each other near the coffee bar. He complimented my speech. I laughed at his socks, bright orange and covered in foxes. We talked for 30 minutes. Then we talked again the next day, and again the next week. No games, no mixed signals. Just soft, respectful rhythm. When I told him about my past, he didn't flinch. He asked questions, listened more than he spoke, and when I said I needed space sometimes, he smiled. "Space is sacred," he said. "You don't owe me access to everything. You owe yourself peace." That was the first time I considered letting someone in, not to fix me, not to replace what I'd lost, but to sit beside me in the life I had built. My memoir released 3 months later. Trash Seat, Throne Life. The title made some people laugh, others wince, but survivors got it. It sold out in pre-orders. Not because it was polished, but because it was raw. I didn't edit out the nights I wanted to call my mother, or the mornings I missed the sound of chaos because silence felt too heavy. I left in the parts where I doubted everything. Healing isn't a highlight reel, it's slow, sloppy, sacred. The book was just the beginning. I launched an online space called No More Trash Tables, a digital community for anyone who had been sidelined, silenced, scapegoated. We offered resources, therapists who understood trauma born inside birthday parties, legal experts who specialized in financial manipulation, and moderators who created safe places to speak without fear. People from all over the world joined. They didn't just share stories, they shared endings. Some left quietly, others with fire, some reconciled, some never looked back. But all of them finally had a place to sit that wasn't next to someone else's trash. One night, after a long day of emails and editing episode 10 of the podcast, I sat down in the smallest room of my apartment, a space no bigger than a walk-in closet. But I'd made it mine. Piano in the corner, a soft rug, shelves of books I loved, a candle that smelled like sandalwood, and second chances. I called it my peace zone. I played 3 notes, then another. The song wasn't perfect. My fingers still stumbled, but the sound filled the room, not with performance, but presence. I wasn't performing for approval anymore. I was creating because I had survived, because I had claimed space, because I had found music in silence. They never apologized, they never changed, but I did, and I don't need them to understand what they did to me. I only need to keep dancing on the floor I built myself. Final line, they gave me a trash seat. I built a throne, and now I dance on it.